As mentioned previously, the process of hydraulic fracturing requires the use of a substance called fracking fluid. This fluid contains highly pressurized water as well as a multitude of various chemical additives and is injected into the ground to extract the desired oil or gas. As a water quality specialist, my main concern with this process is the chemical makeup of the fracking fluid itself. My job is to investigate and evaluate the overall quality of water bodies and assess the impact of possible sources of pollution on waterways. And with chemical additives being so prevalent in many of the fracking fluids extraction companies use, I cannot help but worry for the safety of populations near these fracking operations. I imagine not many people are aware of the types of chemicals found in fracking fluid. To be frank, none of them are really that pretty. The types of chemical additives used in fracking operations vary from site to site and are primarily based on things like rock type and other geologic aspects that are site specific. However, it is relatively common for fracking companies to have their own recipes of sorts for fracking fluid that they often keep as a trade secret. Some of the common groups of chemicals used in fracking fluid include a variety of different acids to dissolve minerals, biocides, which are substances that kill any type of bacterial organisms present in the fluid's path. So substances such as pesticides or antiseptics may fall into this category, and even corrosion inhibitors that keep the steel parts of the operation from rusting. All three of those can be potentially toxic to humans depending on the level ingested, as biocides do not discriminate between any good and any harmful bacteria. Corrosion inhibitors can cause issues such as respiratory distress and even damage to some organs, and acids have a variety of negative impacts depending on what kind is used. These are all substances that can end up in our drinking water. And one of the aspects I find most alarming about these chemicals being used in fracking fluid formulas is the fact that human health effects related to exposure to these chemicals are relatively unknown and understudied. It is also incredibly difficult to perform fracking-related groundwater investigations on many of these chemicals because commercial labs were not built to analyze them. There are some chemicals we can analyze, however. One such chemical is a rather simple compound called methanol, or the non-drinking type of alcohol. When ingested at high enough quantities, methanol can cause permanent nerve damage and blindness in humans. If we don't even have the full picture on how these chemicals can impact human health, the only labs with the equipment to analyze them can't, and the compounds we do know about have severe health effects. Why are these chemicals even in use currently? Additionally, I think it is important to mention that in many areas, fracking operations are not required to disclose the specific chemical additives used in their fracking fluid mixtures. This is because the decision of whether or not companies are mandated to share the chemical makeup of the fluid mixture is left up to the state. Although some states are implementing laws that require fracking operations to disclose the additives used, many of them have a variety of shortcomings, such as exemptions for any trade secret mixtures and insufficient penalties for companies that report inaccurate information regarding the additives. So, on top of our lack of understanding of the health effects of these chemicals and our inability to analyze them properly, we are also completely in the dark about the actual chemical makeup of the majority of these fracking fluids. I'd like to conclude my testimony with an example of fracking pollution that has occurred within the last 2 decades. In 2008, residents in the small town of Pavilion, Wyoming complained of a rather strange taste and scent in their drinking water. The resulting study concluded that their groundwater had, in fact, been contaminated by chemicals found in fracking fluid. Fracking wastewater is occasionally stored in large pits dug into the ground. The wastewater near Pavilion, however, was stored in a pit that was unlined, allowing it to leach out into the groundwater supply. The study also found measurable levels of diesel, which is thought to be a possible carcinogen, methanol, and other toxic substances. Finally, the researchers concluded that because of this fracking fluid pollution, it was very likely that Pavilion's entire groundwater resource is contaminated. This is only one of many instances of fracking fluid pollution and the negative impacts associated with it. North Dakota alone had 3,900 spill sites by 2016, and the possibility of more is growing by the second. Every human on Earth has a UN-recognized right to clean and sanitary water. So is a future of pollution and uncertainty about our health really what we want?